Nigel, here we are in Washington, D.C. We've got to start with this news of the release of the Israeli hostages, particularly Emily Damari. You never shied away from showing public support for her. What's your reaction to that this morning?
I'm delighted. I just sent a voice note to Mandy, the mother, and you know, I think my voice cracked halfway through it, because what could you say?
Yeah.
It's great news. She looks okay.
You look emotional talking about it.
Oh,
now.
no, I feel for her. I feel for her. I feel for the mother. I feel for her. Do you know why I feel for her so much? No one knew there was a British hostage. No one was prepared to stand up and
She
speak.
wasn't on the front page of the papers.
So I met her in the House of Commons, and yeah, I did my best to make people aware of what was happening. So yeah, I'm thrilled for her. I mean, goodness me, I felt for her.
Would that have happened had Kamala Harris won the election?
Not for a minute. And this is Trump's first great victory. You know, he's such an amazing negotiator. You know, he said if the hostages aren't released, they'll be held to pay. They obviously believed him. So
yeah.
Even before he sworn the oath of allegiance, his impact is being felt around the world in the most incredible way. And for all the attempts to demonize Trump and who he is and what he is, look back at that 4 years as president. Look at the Abraham Accords, something for which any president would have got the Nobel Peace Prize, but not him. And there'll be a recommencement of that. There'll be the isolation of Iran, and quite right too. You know, and the idiots in the European Union, Obama, Britain, in thinking, oh, we can be nice to Iran, they'll be nice to us. I mean, crazy stuff. And of course the war, the ongoing war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia, and of course it's going to be difficult to sort the territorial side of it out. But just think of this. 1 million battle casualties in that war. I mean, it's absolutely horrific. And all we ever hear from Western leaders is, let's just keep the war going on forever. So I genuinely think that this is a president whose instinct is to try and use American might to press for peace.
Why does he have that reputation, though, of being a warmonger?
Well, it's because that's how they want to characterize him. You know, it's completely untrue. You know, peace comes through strength, and bullies have to be stood up to. And these are great lessons from history that I think many modern politicians have actually forgotten.
Pete Hegseth, who is going to be incoming, if all goes well, in charge of defence, has been talking about that and saying how, war will be a last resort.
Yes.
Peace will always be the ambition. And Tulsi Gabbard, who's said something similar, who probably be working in national intelligence. That's quite a different tone from Trump 1.0, or did we just not notice it last time?
I mean, I was there yesterday when Pete Hegseth gave the speech, and I had a few words with him afterwards. I mean, someone I've known for a long time, because of course he was a Fox News anchor. Yeah. It was a remarkable speech. I mean, you'd never hear that from a British Defence Secretary.
Yeah.
You know, he said, we want a new warrior class.
Yeah.
Apparently recruitment's going through the roof already. People want to be part of this. But he made it absolutely clear that war is the last resort. And if you think back on our record in the last few years, Libya, what were we even thinking of? You know, we got rid of... Gaddafi said, if you get rid of... And by the way, I'm not saying he was a good guy. Gaddafi said, you get rid of me, 5 million people will cross the Mediterranean. But we carried on and did it, and look what's happened. I think this is... I think the emphasis that he will give this as the incoming Defence Secretary, the pride in being part of the American military, the preparedness to stand and fight if they have to, but only as a last resort. Great messages.
The messaging, as you say, is very different to what we're hearing from, let's say, the Labour government at the moment in the UK. How are those two administrations going to work together? Because I think I know enough about you to know that you take no satisfaction in the fact that that being a difficult relationship doesn't help the UK in any way. How worried are you about that, and where Keir Starmer is going to be on the pecking list of who is an important Western leader to work with Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, the first thing to recognise is that Trump is the most Anglophile president we've had for 70 years. There's no question about that. You know, he's very much his mother's son. And those teenage years, holidaying in Scotland, his love of Scottish golf, of everyone from David Bowie to Elton John to Phil Collins to, I mean, you know, no, I mean,
yeah.
And you find this so much on the East Coast in America that you know, even you meet people, oh, I was in London last week, I'm coming next month or whatever. Culturally very, very close to us in so many ways. Big opportunity for us. I have to say that had the Chagos Island deal gone through ahead of the inauguration, which is what Starmer was trying to do,
yeah,
that would have fractured the special relationship for the next 4 years.
Because Trump would have seen it as what?
Betrayal. Betrayal of British interests, betrayal of American interests, and frankly, betrayal of Western interests. That island, that military base, is the most important strategic base America has around the world. And if you think about it, you know, because we have the sovereignty of those islands, we let America use it. That island is at the heart of the special relationship. There is no more important symbol in the world of the cooperation between us than that. Quite what our student politicians and human rights lawyers were thinking, I don't know. So there is at least a reprieve on that front. And when you think, you know, Lammy and others have been so abusively rude about Trump over the years, what in goodness sake's name is the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, a Labour Mayor of London, doing on the eve of the inauguration, saying Trump coming to power is resurgent fascism? It's as if there are people just lobbing in grenades, doing everything they can to damage the special relationship. That's a problem. And the third problem is that if the British Prime Minister wants to pivot back towards the European single market, well, that makes it ever so much harder to not just get rid of tariffs with America as and when they're imposed, but to actually move on to what I think is possible, which is free trade agreement done on sectoral terms. So I would say to the Prime Minister, you have an amazing opportunity here. You know, this relationship with America is our most important in the world. Without America, we are defenseless in a very dangerous world. Please think hard about your choices.
How aware is Donald Trump about the measures that Labour and Starmer have, or the steps that they've taken which could damage that relationship? What I'm saying is, he's a busy man. Like, does he understand that there were 100 Labour delegates over here, effectively representatives?
Don't you worry about that.
He's well aware of all of that, is he?
Well, Trump is amazing. You know, you go to Trump's office, and he's there behind the desk, and he just grills you. He's pumping for information. What about this? What about that? What's happening there? What's happening here? And he does that every day with loads and loads of people, and stacks of stuff gets thrown at him. And he retains an awful lot of it.
Yeah.
He retains an awful lot of it. And he's incredibly well briefed on a broad range of subjects, and he is incredibly far-sighted. I remember going into Mar-a-Lago and him saying to me, what do you think about Ukraine? Do you think Putin's going to invade Ukraine? I said, no, I don't really think he is. About a year before, he said, well, I wouldn't be so sure, Nigel, I think he is. I mean, I was completely wrong.
Yeah.
You know, I admit I was completely wrong, but he was seeing that a long way down the road.
What will happen, do you think, now with Russia and Ukraine? In the election campaign, Trump said he would finish that war within 24 hours. That's looking like quite a big ask now. I might be paraphrasing a little.
As has been said, you should always take Trump seriously, but not necessarily literally.
Yeah.
But will the negotiations start within 24 hours? Oh, yeah. I mean, they've started already.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting, you know, we've had Boris Johnson, you know, the great warrior Boris, saying, you know, we must fight and Ukraine will win, and sort of almost as if he's pushing sort of endless war, which is what it would be.
Yeah.
You know, this is 1917, the style of attritional warfare. It's absolutely horrendous. And even Zelensky now, even the president of Ukraine is saying, look, you know, we're open to a peace negotiation. So you know, what shape that takes, I think when I can see myself some of the moves that need to happen.
Yeah.
Ukraine is going to need to come to a peace deal. Ukraine is going to need some very strong guarantees, particularly as we let them down terribly over the Minsk Accords, which we signed 30 years ago. and a message has to go to Putin, this is it.
Yeah.
You are not going any further, and here's why. So no one pretends it's going to be easy, but I think it's not just possible but probable that there will be a settlement.
Let's talk about Lord Mandelson, American ambassador to the UK. Controversial appointment. The press have been awash with rumours that Trump might veto his appointment. This morning it appears that some spokespeople for the Republican Party have said that isn't actually the case, that he won't be vetoed. What do you make of that appointment? And does Trump have the power? Would it be unprecedented for him to say, actually, I want you to go and pick someone else?
I think there is a precedent back to the 60s where the Americans had quite a big influence, but it's not a veto in legal terms. It's an effective veto, isn't it, that they could wield. It was interesting. We had that big party on Friday night, and you were there interviewing people for GB News. A lot of people in the room who are people who are coming into the administration with posts, some quite senior ones in the room as well. Yeah, they were asking a lot of questions. Mandelson would have to do two things, I think, to really get their confidence. Number one, to say, look, I get it, this Chagos deal is a disaster, we can't allow this to happen. And secondly, he's going to need to give them some reassurance on the EU pension front. Because Peter Mandelson gets £31,000 a year as a pension after his term as a European Commissioner. Written into the rules is that to get this pension for life, you have to continue to support the aims of the European Union. So he needs to satisfy those 2 points, and if he can do that, then I think perhaps the Americans will take a different view. But I repeat the point that Diego Garcia is at the heart of the special relationship, and if we're seen to be betraying that in any way or risking that in any way, then that would be very bad news.
Priti Patel was talking on GB News this morning to Camilla Tominey, and she talked about the fact that the Republicans and the Conservatives have been sister parties, she described it. She said, we have the true relationship with the Republicans, and she said reform is merely a pop-up.
Really? Where was she in 2016 when Donald Trump was running for the presidency? Where was the Conservative Party in 2016? Where was even Boris Johnson? He said, I wouldn't want to go to New York in case I bumped into Donald Trump. They were all abusive. The only person who actually came here and stood up for Trump and has never wavered over the course of getting on for a decade is me. What is she talking about?
Yeah. Why do they handle this so badly? The Conservatives don't know what to do with a problem like reform and Nigel Farage, seems.
No, you're wrong about that.
Really?
The Conservatives don't know what to do about any problem. They are really, they have no function. Yeah. What do they stand for? Yeah. Who are they? I don't know.
And Kemi Badenoch, what do you make of her leadership so far?
Oh, I love it.
You love it?
Oh, it's great. I want to stay there for as long as possible.
And if she is still there,
I'm being sarcastic.
I know. And if she is still there in 4 years' time, what then, Nigel?
Whatever her abilities may or may not be, she is in charge of a party that is so bitterly split and divided. I've joked in the past that half the MPs ought to be in the Lib Dems. Well, the Lib Dems or a Blair-style party or whatever it is, they can't have a unified position on anything. They spend most of their lives fighting each other, as they did, of course, in the last 4 years of government. I no longer know what their function is.
Yeah. Tell me about this weekend. What have you been doing? How positive has it been? And what do you feel like the mood in the city is like?
The vibe is unbelievable. Everyone you talk to, from taxi drivers, bartenders, folks you meet, the optimism that something really big's happening, something exciting's happening, and even the way that some of Trump's most vicious opponents, Mark Zuckerberg of Meta, they said, right, okay, hands up. They've all paid £1 million to come to the inauguration. There is a complete acceptance in America that he's won, his vision has won. It's wildly optimistic, certainly economically very optimistic. And the contrast to home is just extraordinary.
The economics is particularly interesting, isn't it? Because it feels like we're at a sort of period in time where we either go the EU way, which seems like a kind of socialist totalitarian vision in decline, or we go the American way, which looks like it's going to return to low tax, free market, even the eradication of the DEI agenda, particularly those initiatives in business.
It's happening.
It's happening.
Yeah.
And which way are we going to go as a country?
I can't answer that. You'll have to ask Keir Starmer. You know, it's his decision. And he's in a terrible bind over it. Because his human rights lawyer, pro-globalist institution, reflex is now something that he has to challenge. I guess I fear the worst.
Yeah.
I guess I fear the worst. But, you know, as I've said many times, both in public and privately to senior Labour figures, if I can be of any help at all, then I would be, because it's in our national interest.
Obviously, all the plans for the inauguration changed with the weather forecast. I have to say it's very mild here.
Today.
We're talking Sunday afternoon, it's very mild.
Not tomorrow.
Do you think the weather is going to be so bad, or do you suspect that maybe this change of plan might have been more with security behind it and the weather's been a nice excuse not to frighten people about being here?
I've just been to Capitol Hill. I can tell you that the roadways are lined with gritting trucks.
Yeah.
It's not like in our country where it snows and we all panic.
Yeah.
I mean, they're lined with gritting trucks. It probably will snow tonight. The daytime temperature tomorrow, even midday temperature tomorrow, is well below freezing. Nighttime temperatures hugely below freezing.
Yeah.
There is a 3-day cold snap coming. It starts tomorrow. That clearly is a reason. And don't forget that in 1985, Ronald Reagan, for the very, very same.
The parallels are almost spooky, aren't they, with the Reagan administration and when he came into power?
Well, and the assassination,
the hostage releases,
all these things. Of course, there are always security concerns. You pays your money, takes your choice.
Yeah.
I'll try and choose to believe that it's the weather.
There's only going to be a couple of hundred people now at the actual signing of the inauguration. Are you going to be one of them, Nigel? Do you know?
No, I can't be. It's impossible. I mean, if you actually think about the rotunda in which it's going to happen, and if you put in there senators, congressmen and women, former presidents, Trump's friends and family, the incoming cabinet, I mean, you're pretty much full.
Yeah.
So, am I disappointed? I'm disappointed for the world, because that image of the president, hand on the Bible, on the hill, it's a phenomenally iconic thing. So, there's a little bit of disappointment, but you know what? That's pretty small.
Where will you be? Do you know yet where you're going to be watching?
I think what's going to happen is those that had seats for tomorrow will be gathered in a big hall somewhere, and after he swears in, he's going to come and say a few words to us.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to happen. But you know what? It's a privilege to be here. It's a very, very big moment. I think America is back on the right track, and I think over the course of the next 4 years, there's an awful lot we can learn.